They left me at the airport with a smile and a lie. A crumpled 50 in my palm, my suitcase on the curb, and boarding passes to Paris in their pockets that did not have my name on them. If you've ever had your own child treat you like luggage, like something to be checked or lost, then before I go on, tap like and subscribe so this story reaches somebody who needs to hear it. I stood there under the exhaust and fluorescent lights, the kind that make faces look older than they are, and watched my son Marcus wheel Tanya's glossy suitcase toward the sliding doors. He turned back only once, just long enough to say, "Family takes care of family." The words sugar-coated and sour. Then he laughed at whatever Tanya murmured and disappeared into departures. The 50 sat in my hand like a dare. I tucked it into my purse, called for a cab, and rode home in a silence that felt like a funeral. Back in Haven Creek, the house looked smaller than it had that morning, the way a room shrinks when somebody decides you don't belong there anymore. The good dishes, my late husband's mother's china, were stacked high on the dining hutch for display, but I was not allowed to touch them. Tanya said I was clumsy. I ate after they ate, warm paper plates gone soft at the edges, and I washed my cup in the small bathroom sink downstairs because the kitchen faucet got crowded. The blue pill organizer sat on the kitchen table like a little calendar of suspicion. Monday through Sunday, snap, snap, snap. Tanya started narrating it on her phone. "Pop's pill time again," she'd chirp, and the iPhone's lens would float up on me like a fishing bobber, trying to catch me wobbling. When a car door slammed outside or the garbage truck rattled on Tuesdays, I startled. Old reflex, loud noises still lay a quick hand on my chest, but it was never a scene until Tanya made one, angling the camera to catch my flinch. "For your own good," she said. "In case we need proof you're struggling." Proof. Such a tidy word for a plan already in motion. "Mom," Marcus would start, gentle in a way that felt like a script. "We're just trying to help." Then he'd count my pills out loud. Sertraline in the morning, prazosin at night. Like he knew my body better than I did. I've kept my own appointments since before he was born. I have sat in rooms with doctors and answered every question clear as spring water. Dr. Alana Price at the VA writes it down the same every time. Mild anxiety, well controlled, cognition intact, patient fully capable of managing affairs. But Marcus did not read those notes to the neighbors. He read a different gospel. "You're not difficult," he'd say, patting my shoulder. "You're broken." They started intercepting my mail, a slow trick that felt like fog rolling in. One day my bank statements came opened. Another day my benefit letter was misplaced. The week after that, a bill got paid twice without me seeing it once. "Numbers are confusing," Tanya told Mrs. Whitaker over potato salad at the backyard barbecue. "We handle Mom's finances now." It took everything I had not to correct the lie in front of a picnic table full of witnesses who wanted their hot dogs, not a lecture on fiduciary theft. I went home and wrote dates on the backs of envelopes with a soft pencil and tucked them into the false bottom of a shoebox in the basement closet. I am not the kind of woman who goes looking for a war, but I am the kind who knows when one has arrived at her door with a bouquet and a camera. Every cruel chuckle got filed in the cabinet in my head. Every charge I did not make. Vehicle lease with a monthly number that could have covered my groceries for 2 months. Designer stores that don't carry anything in my size. Delivery dinners stacked on top of delivery dinners while my rice sat cooling. Went into a ledger I kept in the only safe place I could trust. the small space between breath and resolve. The night after the airport, after the cab dropped me on my own porch like a parcel too small to tip, I made tea I did not want and sat at the kitchen table while the house listened. The pill organizer sat at my elbow. The good china watched from the hutch. Upstairs, Marcus's laughter threaded through the ceiling. "Paris will clear our heads," Tanya said, her voice bubbling like a fountain. "Once the deed is settled, we can refinance. Pool by summer." They whisper loud when they think you are deaf. You can push the river only so long before it remembers it is a river. I rinsed my cup, went downstairs, and pulled the fireproof lockbox from beneath the bottom dresser drawer. My late husband, God keep him, gave me that box on our 40th anniversary and said, "Put the things in here that make the rest of it bearable." Inside, the papers breathed like secrets. The original deed to this house, purchased outright decades ago, my current VA evaluations from Dr. Price, and wrapped in a cloth napkin, the small digital recorder I'd bought last year on sale, voice activated, simple as a yes. You ever seen a woman hold her own future in the palm of her hand? It looks like an object you could lose in a couch cushion. It looks like a little black rectangle that nobody notices when you slip it into the pocket of a housecoat. It looks like choosing to stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided what you are. The next morning, I laid out my medications as usual because the body likes ritual. When the car door slammed and my pulse skittered like a dropped bead, I put a hand on the countertop and breathed. Tanya appeared with the phone. "Here we go," she said, sugary as frosting. I smiled at her like I was tired, which I was, and wished her a good day. That afternoon, Marcus came home with a folder and the performance face he wears when he wants something expensive. "Mom," he started, sliding into the chair across from me at my own table. "We need to talk about your situation." He glanced at the pill organizer like it was a prop, and perhaps it was. "You asked me when dinner was 3 times yesterday." I had not. "You put milk in the pantry." "I do not drink milk." "You're not sleeping." "I sleep fine when people are kind." Tanya hovered behind him, phone tucked discreetly against her hip. "It's getting worse," she said to the room, as if the room could co-sign her opinion. "And we have to think about safety." Another script, different scene. "Family takes care of family," Marcus added, eyes on the folder. "We've scheduled a meeting with a specialist, Thursday at 2. It's just a consultation about competency and guardianship. Nothing formal yet. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." The recorder in my pocket felt like a second heartbeat. "What specialist?" I asked, keeping my voice even, the way you do when you are steadying a picture frame that someone else has bumped crooked. "A family lawyer," Marcus said, and the word family tilted in his mouth until it nearly fell off the table. "He'll help us get things in place. Bills, the house, your care. You deserve better, Mom. Let us handle things." "You already handle so much," I said, and that was the truest sentence I had spoken all week. Tanya's smile flashed quick. Marcus opened the folder, showing me pages with blocks and blanks, lines left empty where witnesses go, a notary stamp that looked too new, too clean, like it still smelled of the store. He slid a pen toward me. "We can sign preliminary papers now, just to get the ball rolling." I looked at the pen. I looked at my blue pill organizer and the fine scratches on the table that my husband and I had made together over decades of dinners and bills and birthday candles. I looked at my son, a man I had carried under my heart, and I looked at the woman who had married him, and for one long breath I let myself feel exactly what they wanted me to feel. Small, needy, grateful for their attention. Then I looked at the clock. Thursday at 2. Enough time to be who I have always been. "I'll think about it," I said, and closed the folder without touching a single page. Marcus did not like that. The smile sharpened. "Think fast," he said, tapping the cover. "This train is leaving the station." When they went upstairs, laughing about what to pack for Paris and whether the hotel near the river had a view, I went back to the basement and pulled the lockbox close. I took out the VA letters and the deed, slid them into a large yellow envelope, and wrote, in my neat Sunday school hand, "Colonel Denise Walker, VFW Post, Personal." Then I practiced saying her name out loud until my mouth remembered it without fear. Sometimes the first act of defiance is not a shout. It is the quiet click of a recorder in your pocket and the sound of paper sliding into an envelope meant for a woman who knows the law and the difference between a mistake and a plan. I put the envelope in my purse and set my alarm for early Thursday, because if there is a train leaving any station in my life, I will be the one choosing which platform I'm standing on when it does. The phone buzzed on the table. A calendar alert I did not set lit the screen. Thursday, 2 p.m. Attorney. I pressed a fingertip to dismiss it, then left it there, breathing, while upstairs the suitcase zippers sang. "You're not difficult, you're broken," floated down through the air vent, followed by a soft kiss and the fizz of champagne poured before dinner. I turned off the kitchen light, and the house settled around me like a friend taking my hand. I whispered to the dark what I had not said to anyone in 3 long years. "No," I told it, softly and completely, "not anymore." And when morning came, I picked up the yellow envelope, slid the recorder into my pocket, and stepped toward Thursday, toward 2 o'clock, toward whatever waited behind the VFW's glass door, just as Marcus called from the stairs that the lawyer couldn't wait to meet me. The ledger didn't begin as paper. It began as a feeling, a low hum under the skin that something was being moved from where it belonged to, where it would never be seen again. Grief makes the world soft at the edges, and after my husband passed, I let people carry things for me that I had always carried myself. Marcus said, "Just until you're steady." Tanya said, "Let us take the load." I believed them because I wanted a reason to sit quietly in my own house and remember a man who stacked our life one careful brick at a time. While I was remembering, they were measuring. In those first months, the humiliations were small enough to look like kindness if you squinted. "Mom, I'll get your mail," Marcus offered, every afternoon at the same time, a smile like a porch light. "Bills are stressful." He began opening envelopes at the counter while I stirred beans and watched his hands move. "I'll set up auto pay," he said, and I nodded because who argues with efficiency? He stopped leaving the statements on the tray by the door. "We're going green," Tanya chimed, meaning invisible. When I asked to see one, she fetched it later, already opened, stapled crooked through a corner, with a new password I did not know highlighted in yellow. "We simplified things. You'll thank us." Restaurants multiplied on the bank record that I could still see for a while. Door deliveries for food that never smelled like my kitchen. Charges from polished rooms where the napkins are a whisper. "We brought you leftovers," Tanya would say, as if generosity always arrived in a damp paper box. The car became a story of its own. My old sedan has a stubborn engine that listens when I talk to it, and it takes me where I point it. "You deserve better," Marcus told me, and he leased himself something German with a seat that hugged him like applause. The monthly number slid past me on a passing screen, $720, and then out of sight. "For your doctor appointments," he explained, while my own keys rested in my palm like stubborn grace. There were shopping bags with names I have known since magazines were heavier than truth. There were shoes that clicked in the hallway like high praise. There was a spa day catalog draped over the arm of the couch, with the corners turned down where the prices swelled. And there was a house cleaner who never made it to my basement room, but polished the kitchen hutch until the good dishes shone like a museum, untouchable. "We're investing in quality of life," Tanya told her mother on the phone, the words slipping through the vent above my bed, along with a laugh that did not need me. "Ours too," she added softer. "We deserve it, taking care of her." The way people talk when they think a room is empty will teach you more than any interrogation. "Family takes care of family," Marcus repeated in different registers, at the grocery store and over the fence and in the church parking lot, testing the phrase like a key that would open every door. "It's been tough. She's slipping," he would confide to someone who only wanted to load their trunk in peace. "We're doing our best." He guided me by the elbow past the ushers like my feet were strangers to the aisle. "Careful, Mom," he said loudly enough for the second pew to hear. "I know how to walk. I have been walking since before he could hold his head up." Loud noises still pull a quick thread through me. That is not shame. That is a nervous system built in a world that rarely said please. The garbage truck on Tuesday mornings makes the windows rattle like unpleasant company. A car alarm can turn a heart into a fist for a breath or two. Tanya filmed my startle once like it was fireworks. "For your own good," she said, a sentence that never leads to a gift, in case we need to show someone. She captioned the clip, "Episode," and laughed when Marcus replayed the moment my shoulders jumped. "Don't be dramatic," she told me when I asked her to delete it. "Dramatic is when you design a narrative and forget your main character is a person." Dr. Alana Price at the VA does not write stories. She writes records. My file reads the same every few months. Mild anxiety connected to loss and old memory, well managed, cognition intact, patient fully capable of managing her life and her money. She asks me how I sleep, and I tell her the truth. She asks what the house feels like, and I tell her another truth. It feels like a place where I pay to borrow the chair with my husband's indentation. She offered me a copy of the evaluation the last time I saw her. "Keep it in a safe place," she said, like a woman who knows that paper can persuade people who do not listen to voices. Marcus did not read those pages aloud when he described me to Mrs. Whitaker over a picnic table glistening with condiments. He chose different lines. "She forgets things," he said. "She paid the electric twice." I paid the electric once, on time, the way I always have, and he paid it again because two proofs look like a pattern when you are trying to draw a conclusion. "Sometimes she wanders at night," Tanya added, though the only wandering I did was to the mailbox where I discovered it already emptied, my hand suddenly light. We had to put a lock on her door. Locks can do many things. They can keep danger out or keep accountability in. You learn which by watching who keeps the key. I began to keep time differently, not by days or weeks, by patterns. How often does a designer store appear on a statement for a household where the person who owns the house wears the same good sweater to church each Sunday? How frequently does a lease payment hit? How long between delivery dinners? I started writing the dates with a pencil on the backs of envelopes and placing them in layers in the shoebox in my closet. This one for groceries I did not pick, this one for jackets that never hung on my hooks, this one for a beach weekend I do not remember being invited to. When the online access disappeared altogether, "We needed to simplify," Marcus said, and smiled like a temporary storm cloud passing. I took photographs of envelopes before they left my hand. I look more harmless than I am. That is one of my greatest talents. You learn a person's respect for you by how they handle your quiet no. When I asked for my mail to be left sealed on the tray, it arrived opened, corners bent like ears that did not listen. When I said I would cook on Tuesday, dinner arrived from a place that pronounces its name like a sigh. When I put my pill organizer on the top shelf of the pantry so I could choose when to show it, it reappeared on the table, centered like art. Routine, Tanya sang. Structure. I require both. I do not require surveillance. There was the matter of the house, the real heart of their hunger. I heard it at night when the upstairs floorboards saved the footsteps. "Once the deed is transferred," Marcus whispered, "and even a whisper has weight. We can refinance, finally fix the pool, maybe build that deck." Transfer is such a lovely word when you are not the one being moved. He brought home forms with lines for signatures and blocks for witnesses and a stamp in the corner that looked more like a costume than an authority. "We'll do it properly," he assured me, and the way he did not meet my eyes told me that properly meant something the law does not recognize. I grew up around paper, church bulletins and school handouts and deeds and loans, and the long letters my grandmother wrote in loops so lovely they almost said what she did not. I know the difference between a line where a person stands and a line a person crosses. When I looked at the pages Marcus slid across my table with his careful smile, I saw spaces that ought to contain names that did not. I saw language that did not carry the weight the courthouse requires. I saw a stamp that sat on the page like a sticker from a craft store. "Just initial here," he said, "then sign here." He tapped with a pen that had the law firm's name on it, a real one that might never have seen those pages. "It will give us flexibility." People who want flexibility with your life rarely mean your comfort. You might believe this would be the moment when I shouted, but shouting is a blunt instrument, and I have always preferred tools that fit my hand. I closed the folder with a touch as gentle as a mercy and asked for time. "Of course," Marcus said, and his jaw told a truer story. "Think fast." The meeting, just a consultation, was set for a Thursday at 2, a time chosen, I think, to make me feel like a patient being wheeled to a procedure. So I practiced a different walk. Each night after dishes, I'd excuse myself and go downstairs to the room where the house still remembers me. I'd bring the lockbox forward, set it on the bedspread, with the little flowers my husband said looked like stars, and open it with the slow ceremony of someone lighting a candle. The original deed, the letters from Dr. Price, the neat stack of older statements with their columns and comfortingly boring lines, the small digital recorder that looks like nothing until it is everything. I turned it on and listened back. The refrigerator hum, a laugh caught at a distance. The word broken spoken like a diagnosis by a man who once held my hand to cross a street he did not understand yet. I heard my own voice say evenly, "I will think about it," and underneath, if you listen closely, resolve. I do not like to lie, so I did not. I let them think what they wanted, and I began to prepare. I took photographs of the fake transfer pages with my old phone and slid the device into the cutlery drawer where no one looks because nobody suspects the knives. I wrote down the names of the neighbors who had heard Marcus perform our story at the fence, good people who did not know they were being drafted as props. I found Sergeant Andre Cole's number on the bulletin board at the VFW and copied it on a card in my purse. I read, late, about the county's rules for high-value property transfer and the way a witness's name needs to ride along with the signature so the wagon will hold when it hits a bump. In the margin, I wrote 2 words I learned decades ago from women who kept their families afloat with nothing but grit and a good eye. Prove it. Money is not affection, but it can be a map. You follow it and you will see where care turns into consumption. The account that used to pay for our light and our mortgage and our quiet was now paying a lease, and dinners I did not eat, and a trip across an ocean to a city where pictures are the point. Paris lifted off their tongues like sugar. "We deserve a reset," Tanya said, "after everything." I considered what everything meant when you said it to the person you were draining. I looked at the calendar that had pinged with a meeting I did not schedule and thought about how easy it is to put a reminder on somebody else's phone if they give you their passcode, which I had, once, when I thought trust was a language we still shared. A ledger is a spine. You stack even small bones one atop the next, and pretty soon you can stand up straight and see. When the private shame built high enough to reach clarity, I took out a sheet of lined paper from the drawer where I keep stamps and recipes, and wrote at the top in steady letters, "What they say, what is true." I drew a line down the middle and began. "She paid the electric twice." I paid it once. He paid it once without asking, and then told the story as if the second proof were my failing. "She wanders at night." I went to the mailbox twice after sunset because they worked late and I wanted to catch the mail before it caught them. "She is violent when confused." I have not raised my voice in anger in years. The only broken plate in this house is one Tanya dropped and told me to forget. She is slipping. My doctor's letters say otherwise. My grocery list is still in my handwriting and the soup still tastes the same. I wrote until the page felt like a mirror pointed the right way. Then I added a second page. What we owe, what they take. I put my name at the top of the first column and wrote the word dignity because it is the first currency a bully tries to spend. I wrote home, and next to it, memories that smell like cinnamon and old paper and motor oil on my husband's hands. I wrote time. In the second column, I wrote lease, dinners, shoes, a weekend by the water, an airplane to Paris, a pen pressed toward my hand like a weapon that does not fire bullets. I wrote the word broken where they put it, and I crossed it out. By the time the week opened its palm and offered that Thursday, I was no longer tired. Sorrow had turned into something with edges. The recorder was charged. The papers were in the yellow envelope addressed in block letters to Colonel Denise Walker, because when you are walking into a room where somebody will try to rename you, it helps to bring another woman who knows your original name. I had called the bank from the library on a computer no one else touched and learned what I needed to about freezes and reversals and procedures, with steps like stones across a river. I had written down the exact words from Dr. Price's last evaluation and tucked them into my purse under the lip balm. I had put my pill organizer in the center of the table the way Tanya likes it, because sometimes you turn a weapon into a decoy. At breakfast, Marcus was bright. "Ready for 2 o'clock?" he asked, like a nurse who wants you docile. "It's for your own good." Tanya poured juice for herself, and none for me. "Family takes care of family," she sang, and for once I agreed with her. Family sometimes looks like a man you bury and the promises you keep to him. And sometimes it looks like the neighbor who sees you on the porch and says, "You need anything, you call." And sometimes it looks like the woman at the VFW who has a notary stamp that is not pretending and a backbone made of law. I washed my cup in the little sink, dried it, and set it upside down on a towel like a small ceremony for the dead and the living. The house hummed. My purse felt heavier than it had any right to, heavy the way truth feels when you carry more than your share. The clock over the stove ticked its round old song. It would be an easy thing to sit down and let the train go where someone else had promised me it would take me. It would be an easier thing to stand up and choose my stop. I wiped the counter, tucked the recorder deeper into my pocket until I could no longer feel its edges, and reached for the phone with a hand as steady as prayer. Thursday came dressed like any other day. Gray morning light, coffee that tasted faintly of cardboard, and the hum of a house that pretended to be safe. But I'd been waiting for this one. I was up at 5:30. Like always, habit drilled deep from years of catching early buses and later early grief. I ironed my blouse the way my mother taught me. Press the collar first so it frames your face even when the world tries to unframe you. By 7, I had packed the yellow envelope into my purse. VA evaluations, the deed, a handful of photographs of suspicious mail, and my ledger. The handwritten one that I kept folded twice inside the cover of a church bulletin. I slid the small digital recorder into the inside pocket of my coat and tested it with a whisper. Testing, 1, 2. It blinked red once, then steady green. Outside, the world smelled of rain on concrete. Haven Creek's main street was waking up. Flag shops setting out banners, the coffee shop grinding beans, a bus groaning to life. My breath fogged in front of me as I walked toward the VFW post, the same place where, years ago, my husband and I had danced on cheap tile during one of their New Year's fundraisers, laughing so hard the volunteers joined in. Now I came alone, walking like a soldier returning to a different kind of war. Colonel Denise Walker opened the door herself. "Miss Carter," she said, and that "miss," instead of "ma'am" or "sweetheart," hit me like a blessing. She was tall, iron gray hair cropped close, still carrying herself like the army never really left her shoulders. "Come in. You said you've got something for me?" I nodded and handed her the envelope. "It's all in there. I think they're trying to take my house." She gestured to the chair opposite her desk. "Sit, Evelyn. Let's start at the beginning." The office smelled like old paper and stronger coffee. The walls were lined with photographs, rows of faces in uniform, some smiling, some staring past the lens into memory. Denise slit the envelope open with a letter opener shaped like a bayonet and began to read in silence. When she reached the deed, she adjusted her glasses and gave a low whistle. "Bought outright, 87. No mortgage, no liens. This is solid." They said they'd handle the bills while While I got through the year after my husband passed, I explained. Now they're calling it their house. Said I signed over the deed. I didn't. She turned the page. And this? Their version, I said. Marcus brought it last week. Said it was just a formality. You'll see the notary stamp. It's too clean. She examined it closely, then laughed, sharp and low. You're right. Office Max special. This isn't a real North Carolina notary. Missing witness signatures, too. Anyone can spot this forgery from 20 feet away. That's what I thought, I murmured. You got proof of how they've been treating you? I took out the recorder. 47 minutes of it. Conversations, the lies, the money talk, them saying I'm losing my mind. She leaned forward. Evelyn, do you understand what you've got here? This is evidence. Elder abuse, fraud, emotional coercion. You've been documenting all of it? 3 months' worth. Good. That's called due diligence. Marines would call it reconnaissance. She smiled, then sat back, her eyes sharpening. Now the question is, do you want to hit them quiet or make noise? Which one works faster? Noise, she said. Public humiliation travels at the speed of gossip. I must have flinched because she softened. Don't worry, we'll keep it dignified. You're not going to be screaming in the street, but they've built a story and stories die best in daylight. She tapped a file on her desk marked Memorial Day Committee. Every year we pick a grand marshal for the parade, usually one of our decorated veterans, someone who represents service and community. Your record fits that to the letter. Vietnam, Bronze Star, 3 Purple Hearts. If you agree, we'll make the announcement Sunday. Why me? Because your son's been whispering to half the town that you're losing it. Let's remind them who you are before he finishes his sentence. I stared at the folder. I haven't worn my medals in 15 years. Then it's about time. Something in me loosened, just a thread, but enough to let in air. What happens next? First, Denise said, we make copies of all this. I'll notarize them properly. Then we'll contact the bank. First Carolina, right? Yes. I'll tell them to flag transactions under your account for irregular activity. You'll get control back. And Evelyn, don't sign anything they hand you, not even a grocery list, until this is over. I smiled for the first time in months. Understood, Colonel. By the time I left her office, the sun had broken through the clouds, pale but steady. The wind caught the flags outside and made them snap. It sounded like applause. That evening, the neighborhood barbecue began 3 houses down at Mrs. Whitaker's, the one Marcus insisted I attend. Good for you to socialize, he'd said that morning. Translation, good for appearances. The smell of grilled meat drifted through the open windows. When I arrived, Marcus was already there, beer in hand, wearing his friendly sun face, the one that fooled people who didn't look too closely. Tanya stood beside him, iPhone tilted subtly like a mirror, catching everything I did. "Mom, over here," he called, loud enough to pull attention from half the guests. "This is my mother, Evelyn. She's been staying with us." The words, staying with us, landed like a shoe on my chest. My house, my table, my air. Mrs. Whitaker smiled kindly. "So nice to see you out, dear. How are you feeling?" "Still breathing," I said. A few people laughed politely, unsure if they should. Marcus jumped in. "She has good days and bad days. You know how it is. But we manage. Family takes care of family." The phrase made my teeth ache. Tanya nodded, lowering her voice just enough for the circle around us to lean closer. "He's such a blessing." Ever since she started having Little episodes, he's been incredible. Episodes? I repeated, but Tanya was already pointing the phone elsewhere. Just small things, Marcus said quickly. Confusion, repeating questions. Last week she couldn't remember where the milk goes. I felt a dozen eyes on me. Heat crept up my neck, but I smiled. Milk goes in the fridge, Marcus. Same place it's gone since 1955. Laughter rippled, awkward but real. Marcus's jaw tightened. She jokes about it, he said, but we're keeping an eye on her. Doctor's orders. Dr. Price's orders? I asked, knowing the name would stick to the ears around us. Because my latest evaluation says, fully competent, no cognitive decline. I have a copy if anyone wants to see. That silenced the circle. For a moment, I could almost hear Tanya's phone stop recording. Then Sergeant Andre Cole stepped forward from near the grill, wiping his hands on a napkin. Young man, mid-30s, posture so straight it looked painful. "Ma'am," he said, "you served?" "Marine Corps Auxiliary," I said, "back when uniforms still had starch." He grinned. "Then your family." He looked at Marcus, calm but steady. "You know, we look out for our own." Marcus laughed too loud. Of course. Just making sure Mom's okay." "I'll bet she's been okay longer than you've been breathing," Andre said lightly, but his eyes didn't move from my son's. That was the moment the current shifted. You could feel it in the quiet. People were thinking, remembering things they'd overheard, small oddities they'd ignored. Mrs. Whitaker touched my arm gently. "You let me know if you ever need a ride to the store, honey." "Thank you," I said, and for the first time in years, I meant it. Marcus ended the party early. "Mom's tired," he announced. "She gets agitated at night." "I'm fine," I said, but he was already guiding me by the elbow toward the street, a performance for anyone still watching. When we got home, he closed the door a little too hard. "Why'd you do that?" he hissed. "You embarrassed us." I answered questions. "You don't contradict me in public, you understand." "I understand you're lying in public," I said, softly enough that only the recorder in my pocket heard it. He stared at me for a long moment, eyes cold, jaw tight. Then he said the words that should have frightened me, but instead felt like confirmation. "After the meeting next week, you won't have to worry about anything anymore. We'll handle it all." He went upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen. The recorder's light blinked twice, then steady. At dawn, I walked to the front porch, the air still smelling of charcoal and rain. Across the street, Andre was out early, jogging. He saw me, slowed, and saluted playfully. I returned it, hand trembling only a little. Inside, the house was silent. Marcus and Tanya still asleep, dreaming of Paris and ownership papers that would never stand. I opened my lockbox again, added a new sheet to the ledger. On the top line, I wrote, "Barbecue Saturday night. Witnesses present. Public lies recorded. Allies found." Below that, one sentence in heavier ink. "The parade comes Monday. Let them think it's theirs to watch. It's mine to command." Then I closed the box, hid it back under the bed, and whispered to the quiet room, "You've got 6 days, Evelyn. Make them count." The next sound was the soft click of the recorder turning on again, capturing the calm before the first real shot of the war. Sunday morning sunlight slanted across the kitchen floor like it didn't know yet whose house it was shining on. The barbecue hangover still hung in the air, plastic cups in the sink, the faint sweet rot of spilled soda on the porch, and a silence that felt rehearsed. Marcus hadn't spoken to me since that night, but the way he avoided looking at me said more than words ever could. By noon, he came down the stairs in his church clothes, folder in hand, face pressed into a calm I'd learned to recognize as performance. "We've got the meeting tomorrow, remember?" he said. "The lawyer wants to make sure everything's ready before we leave for Paris." I wiped my hands on a towel. The meeting about declaring me incompetent? His smile didn't move his eyes. "It's just a consultation. Don't make it dramatic." Tanya came behind him, perfume thick as a lie. "It's for your safety, Mom. We can't have you signing the wrong things, you know." "Oh, I know," I said. "I know exactly what happens when people sign the wrong things." Marcus's gaze narrowed. "Don't start." "Wouldn't dream of it," I said, slipping my phone into my pocket. The recorder was already running. That afternoon, I took a walk, my usual loop past the courthouse, down to the park, then around to the VFW post where the flags were snapping in the breeze. Colonel Walker was standing outside talking with two men from the Memorial Day Committee. When she saw me, she waved me over. "Well," she said, "the motion passed. You're our Grand Marshal." I blinked. "Already?" "Already. The parade's in 6 days. Whole town'll be there. Press, vets, council members, everyone. I hope you're ready to remind them who you are." "Ready as I'll ever be." Denise smiled. "Good, because this isn't just about a parade anymore. It's about control. I've looked through everything you gave me. The fake deed, the missing witnesses, the Office Max stamp. It's textbook forgery. I've prepared the real legal response." She handed me a folder, thicker than the last one. Temporary restraining order, financial fraud complaint, elder abuse documentation. As soon as they make a move, we file. Until then, you keep gathering proof. I touched the folder. "Do you think I can win?" Denise's eyes softened. "You already have, Evelyn. They just don't know it yet." That night, Marcus gathered me in the kitchen. The air was thick with something I couldn't name but knew too well, anticipation dressed up as concern. He slid a stack of papers across the table. "Let's just get this done, Mom. It'll make things easier for everyone." The pages were crisp, hot from a home printer, and still smelled faintly of toner. My name sat at the top of each sheet, bold and formal. "Legal guardianship agreement," I read aloud. Marcus leaned on the counter, arms crossed. "Temporary, just until we're back from Paris. We'll manage your finances and the property while you rest." "And after Paris?" "Then we'll talk. Maybe refinance, maybe look into assisted living options." Tanya was standing behind him, phone tilted just enough to catch the light. "It's for your peace of mind," she said. "We don't want you worrying." I picked up the pen. "2 witnesses?" I asked, reading the fine print. Marcus froze. "What?" "Every document transferring property over $50,000 requires 2 independent witnesses and notarization by a licensed professional." I looked up at him. That's what the county courthouse told me. His eyes flicked sideways to Tanya. "That's not relevant." "It's the law," I said gently. "But you wouldn't know that. You were too busy practicing your signatures." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the refrigerator hum. "Mom," he said finally, voice low, controlled, "don't test me." "I'm not," I said, setting the pen down. "I'm teaching you." Later that night, when the house had settled into its uneasy quiet, I went down to the basement and opened my lockbox again. The recorder blinked green, confirming what I already knew. Their performance was complete, and I had it all. I added a note to my ledger. Monday, 7 p.m. Marcus presented forged guardianship papers. One witness, no notary. Recorded full conversation. Underneath, I wrote, "They are accelerating. Fear looks like urgency when it's dressed as control." Then I called Denise. "They made their move," I said. "Good," she replied. "That's what we were waiting for. Bring the evidence tomorrow morning before the meeting. I'll notarize the complaint myself." "Do I confront them?" She paused. "No, not yet. You'll see why soon." The next morning, the air carried that charged stillness that always comes before a storm. I arrived at the VFW just after 8, folder in hand, wearing my husband's old service pin on my lapel. Denise was waiting with a cup of coffee and 2 documents spread out on the desk. "The temporary restraining order's ready," she said, and I filed the fraud complaint under seal. As soon as the parade hits Monday, we'll unseal it and serve them publicly. It'll stick harder that way. Half the town will see. I hesitated. "You're sure that's wise?" "It's justice," she said simply. "They turned your suffering into spectacle. Let's give them a lesson in consequence." By noon, I was back home, pretending not to see the suitcases by the door, the Paris luggage tags peeking through the zippers. Marcus was on the phone in the living room, pacing. "Yeah, Dad's house," he said. "We'll handle the paperwork after the trip." Dad's house. I stood behind the wall, just out of sight, and pressed record. When he hung up, I stepped into view. "Talking to the bank?" He jumped. "No, travel agent." "Strange travel agent that asks about deeds and refinancing." He glared. "You're paranoid." "Am I?" I lifted the recorder slightly so he could see the blinking light. "You should know. Paranoia comes with proof." He stared at me, color rising in his cheeks. "You think anyone's gonna believe you? You're the crazy old woman. We've got years of evidence that you're unstable. Videos, neighbors, even the church." "Then I suppose we'll find out who the town believes on Memorial Day." That stopped him cold. "What are you talking about?" "Just a little community event," I said. "Colonel Walker's organizing it." He laughed. "You still talk to that woman? She's a fossil." "Maybe," I said, "but fossils have a funny way of outlasting everything else." He stormed off, muttering. I could hear Tanya upstairs packing. "Marcus," she hissed, "don't let her ruin this. We're this close." I smiled. The closer they got, the harder the fall would hurt. Wednesday night came heavy with thunder. I sat by the window, the rain tracing slow lines down the glass. The blue pill organizer sat open on the counter. Monday through Wednesday gone. Thursday waiting. For the first time in months, I didn't mind the sound of the storm. It reminded me of the noise I used to flinch from. Now it sounded like applause waiting for a curtain to rise. At midnight, I opened my notebook again. Operation Memorial Day. 1. Parade confirmation. 2. Public announcement in paper tomorrow. 3. Serve restraining order on stage. 4. Record everything. Underneath, I wrote one more line. They wanted an audience. I'll give them one. Then I turned out the light. Thursday morning, Marcus came downstairs whistling, smug and easy. "Did you see the paper?" he asked. I hadn't yet, but the way he asked told me something was wrong, or maybe perfectly right. I walked to the porch, and there it was. Haven Creek Memorial Day Parade to honor local veteran Evelyn Carter. My photo taken decades ago, smiling in uniform. Marcus stared at it like it was written in a language he didn't understand. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I thought you said I was too confused to manage my own affairs," I said. He blinked. "Mom, this changes everything." Yes, I said softly. It does. He tried to recover. This is great. The whole town will see how proud we are of you. They'll see something, all right. Tanya appeared, holding her phone, already recording. Oh, this'll be perfect content, she said. Veteran mom, loving family, great for social. Marcus forced a laugh. We'll get you a new outfit. You'll ride in the convertible, wave to everyone. Think of it as a celebration. I am, I said. Exactly that. He didn't hear the second meaning. He rarely did. That night, I found myself polishing the medals I hadn't touched since my husband's funeral. 3 Purple Hearts, 1 Bronze Star, each one proof that I'd faced men with rifles and lived. Tomorrow I'd face my own son, and I wasn't sure which kind of enemy was worse. When I finished, I placed them back in their frame, then whispered to the empty house. For every woman who's been told she's broken when she's only been betrayed, this one's for you. The thunder outside rolled again, low and promising. And upstairs, Marcus laughed in his sleep, dreaming of Paris. I smiled in the dark. Let him. By the time his plane left, he'd have no house to come home to, no money to spend, and no reputation left to hide behind. Because this time, the train he thought he was driving was about to run straight into a wall he built himself. And I'd be standing there, medals gleaming when it did. Friday morning dawned with the strange quiet that comes before revelation. The birds were louder than usual, as if the world itself wanted witnesses. The newspaper headline about the parade sat open on the counter where Marcus had left it. My photograph beneath the words, "Local veteran chosen as Grand Marshal." I could almost taste his confusion in the air. He came downstairs wearing his salesman's smile, the one that only appears when he's cornered. "Mom," he said lightly, "this is a big deal. Why didn't you tell us sooner? We could have helped you prepare." "You've been helping me prepare for years," I said, buttering my toast. "You just didn't know what for." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing you'd understand right now." Tanya appeared, phone already in hand. "Marcus, let's take a picture. We can post something sweet. Proud of our brave mom. The town will love it." I looked up. "You think a camera will make you look better? Be careful, sweetheart. Cameras record everything." Her smile faltered. By noon, the house filled with the sound of planning. Clothes hangers, suitcase zippers, and the hollow rattle of confidence. Marcus was on the phone again, talking in low tones I wasn't supposed to hear. "Yes, the house," he said. "Refinancing next week. Paperwork's ready. She's signing the guardianship Monday, right after the parade. Yeah, we'll have full control before the trip. Paris will be the celebration." I leaned in the hallway, unseen. He still didn't know the fake documents had already been reviewed by a notary who was also a retired Marine colonel. He didn't know the signing would never happen, not the way he imagined. I pressed record on my phone, catching every word. When he hung up, I called softly from the kitchen. "Marcus, could you bring me my VA letter from the mail, the one from Dr. Price?" He turned pale for half a second, just enough. "You don't need that right now." "I think I do." "Mom," he said, the tone tightening, "we've talked about this. You get confused with documents." "Maybe," I said, "but I've never been confused about who's trying to steal from me." That evening, I walked to the VFW for the committee meeting. Colonel Walker met me at the door, her uniform crisp, her expression steady. "You're ready for Monday?" "I think so, though I imagine it'll be one hell of a show." "Oh, it will," she said. I've already spoken to the sheriff's office. They'll be standing by just in case your son tries anything stupid. The restraining order is printed and sealed. We'll serve it at the reviewing stand right after your speech. You'll have a mic and 800 people watching." I exhaled. Good. Let him see what justice looks like in daylight. She nodded toward a table in the corner where a familiar face sat. Sergeant Andre Cole, in civilian clothes but carrying that unmistakable discipline in his spine. "Andre offered to be part of your escort that day," Denise said. He rose and gave a small salute. "Ma'am, if anyone tries to mess with you, they'll have to go through me first." "Thank you," I said. "But I think when the truth comes out, they'll be too busy running to fight." Saturday's sun rose hot and clean. The town was already decorating for the parade. Flags on storefronts, kids painting stars on cardboard. I went downtown with Denise to meet the local paper's reporter, a young woman named Faith who carried her camera like a badge of honor. "Miss Carter," she said, "could we get a few words for the article?" "Of course," I said, smiling. "You can quote me on this. Service doesn't end when the uniform comes off. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones fought at home." Faith's eyes widened slightly. "That's powerful. Mind if I use it as the headline?" "Please do." When I returned home, the atmosphere had shifted. Marcus was unusually polite. Too polite. All charm and forced laughter. Tanya was bustling around the living room, arranging things that didn't need arranging. "We want Monday to be perfect," she said. "Everyone's going to see how supportive we are. Maybe wear that metal frame you love." "I think I'll wear the real thing," I said. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Mom, about what you said the other night. The lawyer, the papers. Let's not make a scene, okay? People talk. It'd embarrass all of us." "Embarrassment isn't the same as guilt," I replied, though sometimes it's the first sign of it. He forced a laugh. "You've been watching too many crime shows." I smiled. "Or living in one." Sunday afternoon, Denise called. "It's official," she said. "The parade program's printed. You're the Grand Marshal. Marcus and Tanya are listed as family representatives. They'll be front row. We'll serve the papers right after your speech. The reporter will be there too." "Perfect. Just remember," she continued, "no surprises on your end. Let the law do the talking." "I understand," I said, but part of me knew I'd say what needed to be said. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, medals laid out on the table in front of me. The moonlight caught their edges, soft and steady. I traced my finger over the engraving of my husband's name on the back of one. He died believing our son would carry our values forward. Maybe he still would, just not the way he imagined. At midnight, I turned on the recorder and spoke quietly to the dark. "For the record," I said, "if anyone listens to this someday, justice isn't revenge, it's remembrance. It's saying, I see what you did, and I will not let you rewrite it. Tomorrow, he'll see what that means." Monday morning came like the slow pull of a trigger. The house buzzed with forced energy. Marcus was pacing, rehearsing his proud son lines. Tanya had her hair curled, camera ready. "You look beautiful, Mom," she said, like flattery could undo years of cruelty. "Thank you, dear," I said, fastening my medals. "It's nice to be seen." Marcus smiled nervously. "Remember to keep your speech short, 2 minutes tops. Just thank the committee, mention the troops, nothing personal." I nodded, pretending to agree. Nothing personal. He exhaled in relief. "Good. Let's make this day about pride, not problems." Oh, it'll be about pride, I murmured. Just not the kind you're thinking of. City Hall Square was already overflowing. Flags rippled against a cloudless sky, children waved miniature banners, and the air smelled of barbecue and sunscreen. The convertible gleamed in the sun, polished to perfection. Colonel Walker stood waiting beside the car, clipboard in hand. "You ready, Grand Marshal?" "As ready as a 70-year-old woman can be," I said. "Good answer," she said, smiling. Marcus hovered nearby, introducing himself to anyone with a camera. "That's my mom," he kept saying. "We're so proud. She's been through a lot, but she's family. Family takes care of family." I heard the phrase and felt my jaw tighten. It was almost poetic, the way liars recycle their lines. The parade began at 11. The band struck up a march, the convertible rolled forward, and the crowd clapped as I passed. Faces blurred together, some familiar, some strangers, all watching. I waved slowly, medals catching the light like little suns. At the reviewing stand, Denise waited beside the microphone. She leaned in and whispered, "When I give the nod, speak from your heart." Marcus and Tanya stood directly in front of the stage, perfect smiles frozen in place, phones up and recording. The band quieted. The air stilled. Denise's voice rang out over the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Grand Marshal, Marine veteran Evelyn Carter." Applause thundered. My hands didn't shake as I took the microphone. "Thank you," I began. "When I first put on my uniform, I learned that family isn't just blood. It's trust. It's loyalty. It's who stands beside you when you're under fire." The crowd listened. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "For years," I continued, "some people have told you I'm confused, that I'm old, forgetful, broken, that I needed help managing what I worked for. But today, I stand here clear as I've ever been." Marcus shifted uneasily. Tanya lowered her phone an inch. I lifted a folded document from my pocket. "This is the deed to my home, paid in full, and this," I held up another sheet, "is a medical evaluation from Dr. Alana Price, stating that I am fully competent and capable." Both were hidden, forged, and twisted by people who thought my silence was weakness. A murmur rippled through the crowd. "Those people are here today," I said, eyes locking on Marcus. "They call themselves family. They've stolen, lied, and laughed at a woman they claim to protect. But Marines don't surrender. We take notes." Gasps spread like wind through wheat. Marcus tried to speak, but Denise stepped forward, unfolding a leather folder. "I'm Colonel Denise Walker," she said, her voice clear. "Licensed attorney and notary public. On behalf of the county court, I am serving Marcus and Tanya Carter with a restraining order effective immediately and notifying them of pending fraud and elder abuse charges." The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts, murmurs. Someone yelled, "Shame!" Marcus turned red. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "Mom, tell them, you're confused." I met his eyes. "No, son. I'm not confused anymore. I'm remembering." Denise handed me the papers, and I extended them toward him. "You're served." Tanya's phone trembled in her hand. The camera caught every second. Andre Cole stepped forward from the crowd, voice steady. "Ma'am, you need a ride home?" "Yes, Sergeant," I said. "Home would be good." As he guided me toward the car, the crowd broke into applause. Not the polite kind, but the kind that rises from a place deeper than manners. Behind me, Marcus shouted something I didn't bother to catch. "Where to?" Andre asked quietly. "Home," I said again. "To my house." The convertible rolled forward through the cheering crowd. Flags waved, cameras flashed, and somewhere in that sea of noise I heard Denise say softly to a reporter, "Sometimes the bravest act isn't war. It's saying no when everyone expects you to surrender." That night, I stood in my living room, medals still pinned, papers spread out across the table. Outside, Haven Creek buzzed with gossip. But for once, it wasn't against me. Marcus and Tanya had fled before sunset. The sheriff's deputies were waiting with questions. The news was spreading faster than any rumor they'd ever planted. I touched the blue star pinned to my chest and whispered, "We're almost done, sweetheart." Tomorrow would bring consequences, but tonight I let myself feel something rare and new, peace. Because for the first time in years, I didn't have to prove I was sane. The world had already seen it, live, on camera, with the whole town watching. And my son's voice, the one that used to tell people I was broken, had finally gone quiet. Tuesday morning crept in with the calm that always follows a storm. Sunlight filtered through the lace curtains, soft and quiet, as if the house itself was exhaling for the first time in years. My coffee steamed on the kitchen table beside the morning paper. Local veteran exposes family fraud during Memorial Day parade. They'd printed a photo, too. Me standing at the microphone in full uniform, medals bright under the sun. Denise just behind me, hand on my shoulder. In the corner of the frame, Marcus's face frozen in shock. I'd never seen a headline make the truth feel so heavy and so freeing at the same time. The phone started ringing before 8. Reporters, neighbors, old church friends. I didn't answer a single one. I needed the silence, the kind that hums after a victory you never expected to live long enough to see. At 9, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Sergeant Andre Cole stood there, still in his jogging clothes, holding a brown paper bag. "Brought you breakfast," he said. "Pancakes from Maggie's Diner. Thought you might be too busy being famous to cook." I laughed, a small surprise laugh I hadn't made in years. "You didn't have to do that." "Didn't have to," he said. "But after yesterday, the whole town's talking. Figured you earned a good meal and some company." He stepped inside and set the bag on the counter. The house felt different with another heartbeat in it, safer somehow. "Sheriff served the warrants early this morning," he said. "Your son and daughter-in-law didn't answer the door. Looks like they packed up and left town right after the parade." I figured as much. "They'll be found," he said simply. "You can't hide from paper that loud." By afternoon, the sheriff himself came by, uniform pressed, hat tucked under one arm, expression a mix of respect and regret. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "I wanted to update you personally. The county DA has filed formal charges: forgery, financial fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to defraud a veteran. They'll be extradited once we locate them." "Do I have to testify?" "Not yet. We've got the recordings, the documents, and Colonel Walker's sworn statement. That'll hold just fine for now." He paused at the door. "For what it's worth, ma'am, that speech yesterday? Haven Creek hasn't stopped talking about it. You didn't just help yourself. You helped a lot of folks who didn't think they had a voice." When he left, I stood for a long moment in the quiet kitchen, looking at my reflection in the window. For years, I'd seen a tired woman who kept her voice small. Now I saw someone who'd made the whole town listen. The days that followed moved fast. Wednesday, the local bank called. "Mrs. Carter," the manager said, After reviewing your complaint and the evidence, we've reversed the unauthorized charges. 47,000 in total. The account your son opened under your name is frozen, pending investigation." "Thank you," I said, steady. "One more thing," she added. "We'd like to invite you to speak at our community seminar next month about protecting seniors from financial exploitation. You've become something of a local expert." I smiled. "I'll think about it." That night, I found a small envelope slid under my front door. No return address. Inside was a single folded piece of paper and a line written in Marcus's handwriting. "Mom, please, can we talk? We made mistakes. Don't let them destroy us." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I folded the paper back up, slid it into the lockbox, and wrote beside it on the ledger, "Apology received, not accepted." Thursday brought the media. Channel 9 News parked a van on Pine Street and filmed their segment from my driveway. I didn't appear on camera, but I watched from behind the curtain as the reporter said, 70-year-old veteran Evelyn Carter exposed a years-long scheme by her son and daughter-in-law to steal her house and pension. Her courage at Monday's Memorial Day parade has sparked new county programs to protect vulnerable elders. They used the footage from Tanya's own phone, the one she'd been so eager to record. Her voice echoed faintly through the broadcast, panicked and pleading. "Mom, stop! You're having an episode!" I watched the replay, watched myself lift the documents calm and clear, watched the crowd rise to their feet. Then I turned off the TV. Some things only need to be seen once to stay forever. Friday, I returned to the VFW. The place smelled of coffee, polish, and purpose. Denise was already there with a stack of papers and a small brass plaque on her desk. "What's that?" I asked. She smiled. "Your name. The board voted to start a new fund, the Evelyn Carter Elder Advocacy Initiative, for veterans facing what you went through. We'll use it to pay for legal help, mental health evaluations, and housing support." I touched the plaque, tracing the engraved letters. "You did this fast." "People move fast when they see courage," she said. "Besides, the community's been donating since Tuesday morning. You've started something bigger than you realize." I swallowed hard. "Thank you, Colonel." She shook her head. "Don't thank me, Evelyn. You fought your own war. I just brought the paperwork." By Saturday, Haven Creek felt like a different town. Neighbors who had once avoided my eyes now waved when I passed. Mrs. Whitaker brought over a peach cobbler and a shaky apology. "We should have seen what they were doing to you," she said, voice trembling. "It's all right," I told her. "Sometimes evil hides under the word family. We all want to believe it means safety." That night, I sat on the porch with Andre. The air was thick with honeysuckle and quiet gratitude. "You ever miss the noise?" he asked. "Which noise?" "The kind that tells you you're still fighting." I thought about that for a while. "Not anymore," I said. "I think I've finally learned that peace is a sound, too." He nodded. "Well, for what it's worth, everyone at the base is proud of you. Word spread past the county line." I smiled. That wasn't the goal, but I'll take it. Sunday morning, Denise called again. The DA's office reached a plea deal. Your son and his wife are turning themselves in. Probation, restitution, community service at the VA hospital. "Good," I said simply. "You all right with that?" "I don't want revenge," I said. "Just accountability." "You've got that now." After she hung up, I stood for a long moment, watching the sunlight spill across the living room, across the medals, the photographs, the framed deed. Every object looked heavier now, more rooted, as if the house itself had been waiting for proof that I still belonged here. Later that afternoon, I walked to the VFW for the fund's dedication ceremony. The hall was full. Veterans, families, even the bank manager and the mayor. Denise gave a speech about honor and resilience. Then she handed me the microphone. I looked out at the crowd, faces young and old, and said, "I've learned that survival doesn't always come from winning battles. Sometimes it comes from refusing to be erased. There are people who will take your silence as permission until you show them it was preparation." Applause rose around the room, warm and steady. For the first time in decades, I didn't shrink from it. That night, I came home to find a small box on my porch. No note, no address. Inside was my son's Bronze Star replica, the one he'd kept on his office shelf as decoration. Below it was a single folded card that read, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I placed the medal on the mantel, not as forgiveness, but as reminder. Some apologies are confessions in disguise. Monday morning, 1 week since the parade, I brewed coffee at sunrise. The house was mine again in every sense that mattered. Mail arrived addressed only to me. Bank statements came sealed. The pill organizer sat closed, no longer proof of fragility but of order. Outside, Andre's kids ran past the fence on their way to school. "Morning, Miss Evelyn," they shouted. "Morning, babies," I called back. Their laughter carried down the street like music. I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, the framed medals catching the dawn. Somewhere in the distance, a marching band practiced for the next town event, a tune familiar, steady, proud. It hit me then, the full weight of it, not just the revenge, not even the justice, but the quiet miracle of having survived my own blood and still found something to protect in others. When I went inside, the recorder still sat on the kitchen table. I pressed play. My own voice filled the room, the trembling woman from months ago, whispering promises in the dark. "I'll prove it. I'll take back what's mine." I smiled, reached forward, and pressed stop. Because the proof was done, the battle was over, and the house, every wall, every picture, every quiet inch, was finally listening again. And somewhere beyond that silence, beyond the porch and the street, and the flag still hanging from the mailbox, Haven Creek was learning what justice sounded like when spoken by a woman who'd been told she was broken. It sounded like thunder at first, then applause, and finally, peace. The next morning, I would wake up not as Evelyn Carter the victim, or Evelyn Carter the Marine, or even Evelyn Carter the Grand Marshal, just Evelyn, and that was enough. The first morning of summer broke clean and gold across Haven Creek. I woke before the sun was all the way up. Habit, I guess, from years of making breakfast before anyone else stirred. The air smelled of dew and lilac, and for a moment I didn't remember why my chest felt light. Then I realized it was because I wasn't afraid anymore. No footsteps upstairs, no fake kindness dripping from the ceiling, no doors locked. For my safety. Just my house, my floorboards, my peace. I brewed my coffee slow, the way I used to when my husband was alive, when mornings were sacred and nobody raised their voice in this kitchen. The percolator hissed like an old friend. I poured a cup, sat by the window, and looked out at the yard I nearly lost. The rose bushes my mother planted, the flag my husband used to fold at dusk, the world I'd earned and almost had stolen from me by the same boy I'd once rocked to sleep. It's funny how betrayal rearranges time. It makes the past sharper, the present slower, and the future quieter. The phone rang once, twice. I let it. When the answering machine clicked, Marcus's voice filled the room. "Mom, it's me. They dropped the charges down to probation. We're doing our service hours at the VA now. You should have seen them clap when I walked in, like I belonged there." He paused. "I know I can't undo it. I know saying sorry doesn't mean much after what we did, but I wanted you to know you were right about everything. I'm going to make it right someday, if you'll let me." I didn't delete the message, but I didn't pick up either. Some chapters don't need answers, just a period where the question used to be. Later that day, I dressed and walked to the VFW. The sun was hot on my shoulders, and every porch I passed seemed to tilt toward me. Neighbors waving, smiles that felt different now, cleaner somehow. The hall was packed when I arrived. They were dedicating the new Elder Advocacy Fund officially today, with a brass plaque polished bright enough to blind you. Colonel Walker greeted me at the door. "Ready for your speech, Grand Marshal?" "Just Evelyn now," I said, smiling. "The medals are resting." She chuckled. "Come on, they've been waiting for you." Inside, the air was thick with warmth, not from the heat, but from hearts that had seen something shift. Veterans, families, bankers, school teachers, even Sergeant Andre's kids waving tiny flags. Denise tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we honor the courage of a woman who reminded us that integrity has no expiration date. Evelyn Carter didn't just stand up for herself. She stood up for every elder, every veteran, every person who's ever been told their time is over. Let's give her the floor." The applause felt different from the parade's applause. Not shocked, not pitying. It felt like acknowledgement. I stepped forward, cleared my throat, and looked at the faces waiting. When I wore my uniform for the first time, they told me to remember 3 things: loyalty, service, and dignity. For years, I thought I'd already lived those values. Turns out I had one more mission left: to fight for them again, in my own home. The room was silent, still, listening. "I lost sight of myself for a while," I said. "Grief'll do that. Love'll do that too if you give it to the wrong people. But if you're sitting here today thinking it's too late to start over, it isn't. I'm 70 years old, and I just learned that justice isn't a courtroom word. It's a heartbeat that refuses to stop when someone tells you to give up." A tear ran down the cheek of a woman in the front row. I kept talking. "My son said I was broken, but broken things can still be rebuilt. Bent metal can be reforged. That's what we do in the service. We repair what's worth saving. So if you know someone going through what I went through, don't tell them to stay quiet. Tell them to take notes. Tell them to keep receipts. Tell them to hold their ground, because silence protects the wrong side." When I stepped back, the applause came again. Not loud, but long, steady as rain on a roof. Denise hugged me tight. "You've changed this town," she whispered. "I just told the truth," I said. "It was overdue." That evening I went home. The sunset over Haven Creek burned orange like a metal ribbon, fading to lavender along the horizon. The porch was warm beneath my bare feet. Across the street, Andre's children were chasing lightning bugs with jars in their hands. "Miss Evelyn," little Emma called. "We caught 4. "Don't let 'em go hungry," I said, smiling. Inside, the house smelled like polish and peace. I opened the lockbox one last time. The documents were still there. Deed, pension statements, VA evaluations, all the proof of a battle fought and won. But this time, I didn't need them as armor. They were just history now. I took out the recorder, the same one that had caught every cruel word, every false accusation, every tremor of my own voice when I still doubted myself. I held it a long time before pressing play. Tanya's voice filled the room. "She's getting worse." "Marcus, just sign the papers. She won't even know." And then my own voice, quiet, unshaken. "You already handle so much. Thank you." I stopped the tape, then smiled. "You handled enough," I whispered. "I'll take it from here." I opened the back door, stepped outside, and laid the recorder on the porch railing. For a moment, I watched the last light fade from the sky, the kind of light that means tomorrow's already waiting somewhere else. Then I lifted the recorder, kissed it softly, and dropped it into the small bucket beside the rosebush where my husband's dog tags hung. A soft hiss as it hit the rainwater, then silence. The past can live in memory. It doesn't need to live in sound. A week later, the first check from the Elder Advocacy Fund helped an old Navy vet named Frank who'd been cheated by his nephew. Denise called to tell me. "Your story gave him courage," she said. "He brought in his paperwork, and now we're getting his pension reinstated." "Good," I said. "Tell him he's not alone." "You should come by sometime," she added. "We could use your help on the board." "I'll think about it," I said, but I already knew I would. On my 71st birthday, I sat on the porch again with Andre's family and a few of my VFW brothers. They brought cupcakes with tiny flags stuck in the frosting. Someone lit a single candle. "To Evelyn," Denise said, raising her glass, "who taught us that Marines aren't the only ones who know how to fight." Everyone laughed, but I felt my throat tighten. I looked at the children. New generation, no wars on their backs yet, no betrayal in their eyes, and whispered, mostly to myself, "To peace that stays." They didn't hear me, but maybe the wind did. It carried the words across the yard, past the rosebush, out toward the street where the American flag rippled lazy in the evening air. When the last guests left and the stars began to show, I walked back inside. On the mantel, the medals gleamed faintly in the lamplight. Beneath them, the framed deed sat beside a small photo of my husband in uniform, his hand raised in salute. I touched the frame and said quietly, "Mission accomplished." The house creaked the way old houses do when they settle. A soft, contented sound, like a sigh that's been waiting too long. If you've been listening this far, thank you. Maybe you've lived something like it. Maybe you've been told you're too old, too tired, too late. But I'm living proof. It's never too late to take your name back. Never too late to stand tall in the same room where someone tried to make you small. So if my story means anything, let it mean this. No matter how long they underestimate you, no matter how deep they bury the truth, keep the faith, keep the notes, keep the light on, because sooner or later, the world will see what you already know. Broken? No. Battle-tested. And that, friends, makes all the difference. Now tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? And if you've ever had to fight for your own peace, tell me how you won. This is Evelyn Carter signing off. Semper Fi, and good night.